What's good? You rocking with your boys, All Rights Reserved. Now, I'm still looking for the notes that I had, so we're just going to get into the first topic that I remembered offhand. Now, how did Trayvon Newsome actually, let's say, get a lawyer versus the rest? As we know, these young men came in not having the finances nor the backing in order to make the decisions they tried to, and it seems like they were interrogated normally. How was he able to take defense? Now, a lot of speculations lasting around the fact that not only dealing with the finances of Tentacion, which I would hope a lawyer would very carefully examine the money he's accepting, but let alone, it's like, how did he, the only one who was last to be caught, have the means to protect himself? Was he being protected by outside entities to prevent this situation of him actually having to go to court? These are many different vital aspects that's going to play a part into not only his defense, but whether he's able to be free again. So him doing what he did gives him the best possible chance of getting out without any other alternate means. That means that before being interrogated or being approached in any way to justify his stance, he's now being held accountable under the laws, the way the law stands to protect the person's constitution, versus the other people that were involved in the case that were allegedly committing the crime and being implicated as suspects did not have the same means. They were interrogated in a special way before they even got the chance to do it. This is very important because, as we know, yesterday I told you either somebody could be pointed out, which could have happened. That's why they ended up tracking them down in the first place. Or we have somebody that's wised up and done it the right way so they weren't railroaded. And this is also going to make a difference in the way evidence is presented. Now, it depends on what evidence. If there's video that implicates him in it, that's another story. But whether or not he was the shooter or even visible in the video is also going to play a large part into if he's held at any type of standard by investigators to be part of the cases that's explained and being displayed to us. This is a very vital viewpoint, and his perspective is going to play a huge part. But until then, they're going to continually run these three guys to try and open up the fact that he was involved in something. This is also important because we're going to get a just for who's actually being implicated in the case, how they played a part. And if there was a scenario written out, it was more than likely written out by the basis of Dedrick Williams. Now, the reason I say this is because, again, I told you on earlier production, he was the first one caught. So being that he got threatened with mastermind charges earlier, the rest aren't really going to get that choice. They're going to have to either do the max time of what they're saying, or the information that they provide is going to have to be so good that it stands over top of the issue that's being examined. Now, being that these guys were in a manhunt situation, Robert Allen and Trayvon Newsome, they should have both lawyered up immediately because they now have to describe why they were avoiding custody, whereas Michael Boatwright has faced his accuser. And we also have Dedrick Williams, who's faced his accuser. Now, the fact they face their accuser is going to play a huge part into what is accepted by what's said. If it's a he say type of situation, it's really going to play a huge part in how the information develops, being that two people have been standing there in custody for a while versus two people who tried to get away. Now, the person that tries to get away is going to be judged in a different light. Their words are going to hold a weight up to what is accepted by investigators, and they're going to run it against what they were told by Dedrick and Michael Boatwright. Now, another thing to note, and we'll get into a video later about the competency thing that Michael Boatwright has stated, there's always many tactics to play a situation. It's only going to tell us later if his tactic works, because still, you got to understand, and we're going to talk more in detail, him pleading to basically say mental competency is not going to help any type of charge or even allow him to be free. Actually, if he was to be free, that stigma is going to be on his life from here on. So he'll have to stand in situations a certain way, even in employment a certain way. So I hope his lawyer explains these things to him very thoroughly, because it will not be an easy task for him to play this off long if these things are deemed to not be true about him. And again, they could be reversed and he could stay in trial for full effect of what's going on. I hope they just purchase the lawyer, as I've been saying at the top of it. Now, it all depends on the evidence. If there's faces visible, which from my understanding, there were masks worn during the case, this is going to play a huge part in contributing to who actually did what when. And again, it's going to be a whodunit type of thing. It's not only going to be what these men say, particularly only if it matches up with what evidence says. Evidence speaks louder than what people say. That is the key part of any type of crime. Your evidence is going to speak and either reinforce or adversely go against stuff that you say in the court of law. And the fact that there is individuals that are going to be saying things that ran, depending on the relevance of what they say, it could overturn the entire case. These are all factors that most people don't pay attention to. It's also factors that most people forget when they're doing types of crimes of these nature. Because that the nature of this crime was so violent, the aim is to hit all four men. Now, again, who knows who the mastermind is going to really open the gates to who's able to kind of slide out the situation, not free, but with the lesser charges. So if these guys come to know the mastermind and only one person speaks up, those people that didn't speak up is going to get the full term of whatever's being handed down. A very interesting detail allotted to me by the peaceful lawyer when me and her spoke was the critical part that in Florida, ruling's different. The death penalty is always on the table, and the fact death has occurred, death penalty could be allotted to one of these four men, regardless if a mastermind's revealed, who in my mind should get the life penalty the least, even if a death penalty is put on the table. The best way to go about watching this case is not necessarily by names and who was running or who was doing what, as much as, let's say, by people who were actually involved in the situation and what they can contribute to any type of knowledge that's gained on the back end. So it's all about the circumstantial evidence. What evidence leads to more evidence? And it's all about if the direct evidence is, let's say, justified. Because as we know, witnesses and different people who were around the case had lots of contradictions in their story. Not only were there contradictions, but within the story, as we know, there were very questionable situations that weren't clarified. And as far as why the men ran, there's going to have to be a very justifiable reason. You will have to have ran for a very good reason during a murder of this level, let alone if the evidence produces that one of you still have holding of the money, all bets will be off the table. That means if I know that you're holding vital evidence and you may have even used it at some point to do something, and I match serial numbers, you guys are going to get the lesser of the better deals that are going around. Because again, as we know, there was claims by Robert Allen to not have any money regarding it, allegedly. By what evidence is showing up till now, doesn't mean he couldn't have stashed it or done something else. But the way the evidence falls out, there's only one man that has seen to buy a lawyer. So do you think that this individual that bought the lawyer used the money that was taken from the case? This is very important because it's going to lead to a lot of different agendas. It's going to lead to a lot of evidence in the future on how he actually got the means over everyone else who did not have the means to actually purchase a lawyer. Let alone, we don't know what part he played in the situation. This is going to be a very important thing because you can guarantee the shooters are going to get lesser deals off the top. If you're a shooter in the situation and you're known to have been someone who violently presumed this, or you were a premeditated party in this situation, all bets are off for you. And that's how the evidence is going to speak. The mastermind is going to get no deals unless they have something very vital that they may want to know that leads to larger crime organizations or a larger connection of a web to criminals and things that may help them piece together other cases. And that's going to take time, even examining this type of evidence. So there's going to be a lot of all bets is off situation, even if they choose to allot for people to be able to make choices to either defend, get lesser time, or not face the same critical error as other suspects that in this case will face. You see, it's all a game of basketball. You're passing suspects back and forth, and you're checking the information and the validity of their skill. So their skill set, which part of them was involved in what, by which skill set, and the past felonies are going to play a huge case in the relevance of how these things relate to them prosecuting these individuals. And that's my thing. It's all about what the evidence relates to and how the prosecution lands in the situation. That's how investigators easily put people in place to see who's validated and who's not. This is an essential error that lots of suspects make when they're trying to examine evidence and see who's related to what. It's all about the type of position you play and how you're seen by investigators when the information comes out. If your characteristics and is suspected to be into deeper implications of crime, or your past reflects a lot of what was done in this situation, you're not going to make it through this case without being, let's say, apprehended or at the least scot-free. This is a very strong examination of the information, the evidence, positionality, who was involved in what, premeditation, who was connected to the mastermind, who actually pulled the trigger, and who in the future could be implicated to do things like this because of their past reflects this. That's why I told you prosecution is going to play off the character. Now, the ultimate question that needs to be understood is, do you think the money from this crime was used to buy law or counsel for one of these suspects? Let me know in the comments below. More to come. You know how I rock. All rights reserved.